Hello and welcome to Hopeful Consciousness. It's day 3 of my 14-day challenge to hopefully help you along your journey of sort of becoming a bit more spiritual and having an awakening moment. So the next step for me in the journey really was I carried on looking at all the YouTube videos and things like that. But one of the key things I set myself as a goal for 2019 was I thought if I do anything this year, the one thing I really want to achieve is to learn how to meditate properly, because most of these states of being, these healing abilities and other things like that, all come out of usually deep meditative states. Now, I've had things like the Headspace app on my phone for a little while and used that, and that sort of thing is great. It starts to make you realize about awareness and the different points of awareness and noticing your thoughts and things like that. So I absolutely think that's fantastic, but I wanted to learn about it at a deeper level really, which is why I looked at some of Sadhguru's stuff and I decided to go on his workshop. It was a 2-day workshop at the Excel Centre in London around Easter 2019. So before attending that workshop, he gives you an online course which you must complete beforehand, which takes you through a series of videos which goes through a lot of the key concepts he talks about. One of which I'll go into details with this particular video, which is about awareness. So it's kind of a little question about what is consciousness and what is awareness. So the fact that you can sit there quietly, look at yourself and observe the thoughts going through your head, and then realize, I'm having this thought. So who is it that's noticing that I'm having that thought? Is it you? Is it, what is it? It's a point of awareness. And one of the key things that Sadhguru sort of talked about over that 2-day workshop, as well as going through all the different steps to his particular meditation, was about freeing the mind from this almost like stress and probably fear is probably the best way to put it, and ending suffering by just getting a little distance between you and your thoughts and your body as well and your emotions. So it's all sort of interlinked with that. So if you can imagine you're on a plane flying over somewhere and you see there's a traffic jam on the road below your plane where you're flying over, you can watch all the little cars, you can observe them in their traffic jam, and it's a very different experience to watching that traffic jam from, you know, like 2,000 feet in the air, just going, oh, look at the little cars and all the people in there must be quite frustrated that they're stuck in traffic, as opposed to being the person stuck in the car, stuck in the traffic, and you might be going, oh, I need to get somewhere really fast, and it's just getting that little degree of separation between your thoughts and who you are. So it's kind of a case of, am I actually these thoughts? My sort of monkey brain is going nuts generating all these thoughts and I keep having these thoughts all the time. Is that who I am? Well, actually I'm observing that from a point of awareness that's separate to the thoughts. So interesting. And so a lot of his stuff is geared around creating that little separation to end basically suffering really. So he goes through on his 2-day workshop, which I do highly recommend you do, various different sort of yoga positions to kind of stretch your body in and get you prepared for the meditation. And it goes through the 2nd day really going through every single step of that meditation. So it involves a few yoga positions beforehand, and after that you're doing a few things to regulate your breathing. You're sort of switching from one side of your nose to another, which I've looked into some of the scientific stuff behind that, and I've looked at quite a few of the techniques that he teaches on his 2-day workshop to do with his meditation, and there's some pretty good scientific basis for it. He often says, you know, I'm teaching you a tool here. Don't worry how the tool works in the same way you don't worry about how the spanner in it helps fix your car. You just know that you need to turn nuts with the spanner, and that that's how it works. So yeah, just a little bit on the sort of breathing on both sides. That actually starts to synchronize the two hemispheres of your brain to kind of get that synchronous feeling together. So that's just one of the steps. You go through a fluttering of your breath. Yeah, different things, which one of them is sort of holding certain muscles tense through your body to almost like create a wave of energy up your spine, I would say, which I've later found out from some of Joe Dispenza's stuff. That's quite key to some of his meditations, and that links quite heavily into stuff with the pineal gland, which again I'll go into with later videos. But yeah, basically it's going through step by step this process, and you end up with something called a sadhana, which is it's like a 21-minute process. It involves some Om chanting, different breathing techniques, and then finally just sort of sitting there peacefully for the few final minutes at the end. And I have to say, after having learnt it there and started to put it into practice, one of his key things is making sure you do that for the next 30 days, twice a day, which I must admit I didn't quite manage to do that. I did do it for about 10 days solid. It is quite tricky because you've got to time it with your meals and things like that, because you've got to try and do it on an empty stomach. You can't really drink and smoke and things like that. Not that I really do any of those things anyway, but yeah, so I managed about 10 days of doing it twice a day, and then I think I did do it for about a month, but just doing it sort of once a day. And it really does start to open your mind up, and you start to have some interesting experiences in your head towards the end of it. But there's something about the particular steps that you do in a very particular order that really does calm that sort of monkey brain mind out. And I must admit, if ever I'm feeling low or anything like that, his particular sadhana is one of the ones that I'll always turn back to doing. It's extremely good. I've never not had a experience of just being calm and at peace afterwards. So that was really the next step in learning to do it. I don't really want to go through all the steps here with you because I'll butcher it and make it horrible, but do have a look at his stuff. You can find some people out there that have done it on YouTube and things like that, but really it does need a couple of day workshop to take you through all the steps of it, to really get that ingrained into you as to how you should do it, the reasons why you're doing some of the things that you're doing, and things like that. So that was really my next step. So yeah, please do check him out as soon as everything's back to normal here. I'm sure he'll be coming to London at some point and doing more of those in the Excel Centre. It's pretty cheap. I think it's about £200, which all goes to his charity. And yeah, for 2 days of learning how to do a fairly decent in-depth meditation, I thought it was quite cool. It's also an interesting experience, just adding on to the end of that, in learning how to sit still for that long. You spend a lot of the time just laying down on your sort of yoga mat thing, and it is quite an experience actually. I guess over here we sit on sofas, sit on chairs and things like that all the time. Sitting on the floor, holding yourself upright in that position for quite that many hours does really demonstrate how little strength some of us have in our lower back and things like that. So part of the yoga exercises that are actually part of this are all to do with strengthening that core, so you can literally stay upright in that position that will help you focus. So yeah, that was my next step in the journey. I hope you do have a look at it, and hopefully see you tomorrow even, for day 4 and my next step. Just having a little evening barbecue here at the minute. So have a good weekend everyone. Bye.